Thank you, Dr. Cruz. People may associate the term ecological with the natural environment. On the other hand, people may associate social with the so called man made or built environment. In combination, people probably think of engineered shelters and perhaps engineered breakwaters and sea walls to protect coastal settlements against natural storms. Actually, the combinations involve not one way actions but dynamic interactions within the integrated environment. The map on your left shows in two white squares two example environments in the path of many tropical storms. I offer here a subtitle in language that is more layperson and more specific to the examples of Site A and Site B as green plus gray belt protection of our coastal settlements. First, we give thanks to the scientists and engineers who were main actors in these stories and the original narrators. The story of A is about the San Pedro Bay in Leyte and Samar and the event of Super Typhoon Haiyan or Yolanda in 2013. The maximum height of inundation with storm surge around Tacloban City by the bay reached about 5 meters or the equivalent of 2 stories of building. Expectedly, wind-driven surge was higher where the seawater level was shallower, as by the inner bay. In retrospect now, we wonder about the wisdom of locating densely populated buildings just where the most funneling effect of storm surges would be expected. The limits of storm surge inundation or flooding during Haiyan or Yolanda are indicated by green points on this map. Flooding in certain areas was a mix of seawater and rainwater that was poorly drained. Meanwhile, the Pan-Philippine Highway, in the form of elevated main road, served as secondary embankment to stop landward flood spreading from the coasts. And such in brief were interactions of the rain, the tide, the wind, the storm surge, the shape of the bay, the land topography both inland and underwater, the drainage of the streets, the elevated road embankments, and the coastal settlements overall. In retrospect now, we know that those interacting elements of the natural and built environments around Tacloban City by the San Pedro Bay unfortunately contributed to the loss of about 3,000 human lives. In future, we need to figure out all sound combinations of better coastal protections. We need to do so also for fishing villages, such as the story of B about Pedada Bay in Panay. This story extends about 10 years. More than 10 years ago, the northern stretch and southern stretch of the coast had well-grown mangroves, but not in the stretch of coast shown in the middle of the photos. Seawater did not allow new mangroves to grow. Instead, the coast was continually being eroded. Mangroves, when fully grown, would not only yield many biological benefits, but also serve as physical protection against sea waves. Ironically, the question was, what would protect young mangroves against sea waves until they grew to their minimum resiliency stage? Unique to this story is the combination of engineering and people's organization in designing and constructing new rock mound breakwaters. In about 2 years, dynamic interactions had produced sufficient accreted sediments to counteract the coastal erosion, appropriate for transplanted mangrove saplings to thrive. Even when Haiyan or Yolanda happened, the breakwaters and mangroves survived. After about 10 years of dynamic interactions, we could now witness, as in the photo on your left, mangroves both natural and humanly planted side by side. And in the photo on your right, here we meet the People's Organization leader and the scientists side by side, who both energized community-based interactions to energize in turn this green plus gray belt protection example at Pedada Bay. And such were interactions not only of the natural and built environments, but also of community and people's organization. Beyond the stories of sites A and B, in future, we need to be more attuned to the variety of dynamic interactions of our natural and built environments. We need integrated science and policy for this. I end here for now. For the Philippines, for example, in future, we envision more long-lasting and dynamic interactions through our government's Department of Environment and Natural Resources, DENR, and Department of Public Works and Highways, DPWH, among others. Back to you now, Dr. Cruz.